Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the new Dagath augment that shipped with Jade Shadows. Spectral Spirit. Honestly, under normal circumstances, I find this augment rather underwhelming. So what does her 3 do by default? You get crit damage, doubled crit damage bonus against doomed enemies, which you get obviously from your 2, Pog. But when you die, if you die, it normally goes on a 25 seconds cooldown where you lose all crit buffs, and that's it. It's a permanent buff you press once, and so long as you play well, it never expires. So, what does the augment do? Well, it gives you the same crit damage buffs as the base ability, not any better, but you get the iframes that would have happened if you died on demand. In exchange, you no longer get your second life passive, which is okay if you weren't dying to start with, but you lose your crit buffs for 25 seconds once the timer runs out. So it's not permanently active, but you can reduce the cooldown by 1 second, not scaling with duration with each kill you get. So no longer a permanent crit buff, no second life, but on-demand iframes most of the time. Oh, and it lets you auto-inflict doom with the augment active, but why is this augment worth it? Personally, I think most of the time it actually isn't. Unless you're playing a non-nuke gun build. Okay, so listen to me here. The biggest weakness of Dagath has always been how reliant she is on spamming her 1 to stun enemies, and also spread rival procs and spread her doom in gameplay, or relegating her to spamming her 4 for DPS. Now, her 4, that's spellcaster build sorted, but the 1 spam only really ever felt comfortable to play with melee, because you cast your 1 radially to hit enemies and spread doom. When you're already close to them, it has minimal spread between you and getting there, so you hit them instantly, and now you can get back to meleeing your enemies instantly. For Gunplay, Wyrd Scythes has always been a bit weird. This is because guns are used at a distance from enemies, meaning you actually need some range to make it work. At least neutral, you obviously can't go negative. Sometimes you might slot 1 range mod, but it takes time for it to reach them, and unlike melee's not needing to be aimed and can be button mashed at close distances, you actually need to shoot the enemy. Therefore, there has always been this small awkward delay between casting her 1 and shooting and then moving on to the next group. Now, this is something that only becomes obvious as you play her. It doesn't ruin it at all. Like, if anything, her gunplay builds are still very good, but today's build aims to specifically alleviate that issue. Enter Ophanim's Eye. This is Jade's Helminth. It's a specific interaction showcasing how the new augment and this can solve each other's problems to synergize. The Spectral Spirit augment does not normally offer anything of note except iframes and auto-applying doom, besides putting it on cooldown. Now, Ophanim's Eyes specifically auto-apply doom to anything within range of its gaze. Generally, this isn't a huge issue because doom is applied before gaze, but with this, you can not only apply doom to enemies you haven't hit yet, you can also slow them down and defense strip them, improving your survivability and CCing them all the way whether or not your 3 is active or not. So this helps with losing access to her second life when using Spectral Spirit. Additionally, Ophanim Eyes solves the other annoying issue, where her 3, unlike the base ability where it can be permanently active, the augment makes it go on cooldown for 25 seconds after the buff expires. Normally, this takes a while to offset, since the 1 second reduction per kill is completely unaffected by duration mods, but Ophanim's Eye allows you to passively armor strip and allow you to kill enemies much easier to quickly reach the 25 kills and reset the augment cooldown of it's realistically you only need 15 to 20 because time passes too. And those enemies are less likely to kill you because you're CCing them with your slow. Therefore, Jade's Helminth functions as a damage amp, doom spreader, crowd control, and fixing the cooldown problems of Spectral Spirit all at once. And what does Spectral Spirit allow you to do for Ophanim's Eye? It ramps up your damage to max, making sure you consistently one-shot enemies with the defense strip active, taking best advantage of your DPS spike, while the augment's limited buff duration is active. And because Ophanim's Eye permanently strips everything in the game, it also allows you to rely on Spectral Spirit to kill anything within the buff threshold that can normally present an actual threat, such as Acolytes. However, That is also the reason why I kept her 4, to not have to worry about that, which I'll explain later. As a reminder though, let's compare this to Roar, which I covered in my original Dagath video. You can see that up at the top right if you want to see other Dagath builds. Now, Roar is also very strong at 410 strength, so why didn't I mention this one? Simple. If you're using a melee playstyle, use Roar. It is almost always better, and if using melee influence, always is better, because it results in 11 times damage amp from triple dipping at 410 strength, which is superior to Ophanim Eyes 10 times damage amp against a 90% damage reduction enemy. Now, if you're somehow rocking a room nuking build or gun build, also use Roar. This is because Roar is a buff that sticks to you that applies to all damage you deal, whereas Ophanim Eyes hitbox cannot keep up with massive room nuking builds. So Ophanim's Eye today is specifically for standard gun gameplay. Think of like, you know, that old school Inaros Ignis Wraith stuff, but better. So this is a 410 strength build, and I'm relying on one Talforged strength shard to hit 313 in Arsenal. The remaining 100 comes from Molt Augmented and Matarai Sling strength buff. Now, if you don't want to use Matarai, I would recommend using 3 other Talforged strength shards. You can drop one of these. But yeah, that's sadly the requirement if you don't want to use a Matarai. I didn't use Flow, so I do have blue Archon shards here. Realistically, you only need 1. I would strongly recommend if you only use 1 for it to be Talforged, but that's enough. So let's take a look at our build now. I will say right now, before you forget, Prime Sure footage should be in Exilus. Now, I just can't fit it due to polarity issues, and I'm not even max rank, blah blah blah, just Forma one more time. So this is a 4+1 Forma build, it's not that cheap, but it does cost 5 total. The biggest issue with Spectral Spirit Dagath becomes her survivability, actually, because you lose her second life protection, and for those that don't know, when this is active, like when you're in your iframes, all shots pass through you, and you literally don't take hits, which means you cannot activate on-hit effects, like Arcane Guardian, or even Adaptation. The only things that will hit you are XMS abilities and AoE hits, but you don't take damage, so that's fine. So as a result, to give her a chance at survival at Base Steel Path, where I made this build for most people, health conversion would be your best choice. This is because her base armor sucks, so stuff like Steel Fiber doesn't work at all. And you'll kill so many enemies during her augment that you will instantly stack this up to 3. For 1,350 armor. And because you cannot be damaged at all while you're invincible, you can't lose any stacks. So you will exit your 3 with 1,350 armor. This gives you enough tankiness to actually proc adaptation stacks without dying afterwards. We combine this with Arcane Blessing further since we're building around energy orbs anyways, and this will eventually get you up to 1.8k health after a couple of minutes in mission. Equilibrium also funds our energy despite being at 45 efficiency because a lot of our kit is basically set and forget, and at 128, our abilities last a while. As mentioned, if you want a longer lasting 3, then if you use 2 more Talforged Ration Shards, you'll get 16 seconds of iframes. Otherwise, on this build, we're sitting at 13 seconds with 38 seconds of defense strip. At 410 strength, that is a 41% strip per second, which will reach a full strip in 2 seconds, since Corrosive Projection lowers the total strip requirement down to 82% only. Now, I kept her 4 instead of her 2, because Ophanim Eyes can CC and proc Doom on things not even hit yet, so it functions well as a survivability tool as well. And if you have full defense strip, you don't really need the out of 3 Doom procs, since the defense strip is so effective, and her 3's cooldown is reduced by kills in general, not just kills on doomed enemies. So keeping your 4 allows you to instantly one-shot Acolytes without needing to actually bring a weapon to kill Acolytes themselves. For your weapons, I honestly don't care what you use, just remember this is specifically for gun platform Dagath to alleviate the need of spamming her 1. Use whatever you want, just be aware that room nuking setups or melee setups are not really compatible with Ophanim Eyes. Your companion is also whatever you want. I'm using a Nautilus and Hellstrom, but her build is not reliant on a particular companion to make it work, so feel free to mix and match. Let's go into mission and take a quick look to see how it will play out. I'm going to be running this against, well, Grineer, because they're the highest armor, to show that how, like, oh, the defense strip works, blah, 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 like that. But you can use any weapon. That's, well, preferably a gun. So the scaling of this on how many enemies you can kill a minute is going to entirely come down to what weapon you pick. since that is the whole point of this loadout, is to not kill enemies with your abilities, but just make it easier to kill with your weapons. So I basically turn the armor strip on, and I turn this on, and that's all I need. And now I can just kill enemies as I please. And that's all you need to do. As you can see, it has pretty NRO's tier looking gameplay, but if you want a simple build that just lets you plug and play with a gun that doesn't care about your companion, and doesn't care too much about the gun that you use, then yeah, you have this. And as time passes, we'll build up to our max strength threshold, which will be nice, because then we'll be able to get the armor strip in 2 seconds. And as you see, even when I exit my 3, I already am up to like 1.4k health now, and procced quite a few stacks of our health conversion and arcane blessing. Which direction? Oh, it's down there. So I can activate these things again, and we'll be a little bit stronger this time for the second time that we casted it. And enemies just, they can't really do anything to me because I'm iframed. You can see I have 3 orbs circling around me. I still have like 4 seconds left. Things are still exploding. Now I exit. I have my armor stacks. I can only lose 1 stack per 3 seconds. And I'm still killing enemies off. My adaptation stacks are now refreshed to max. And we're easily topped up on energy as needed despite being 45 efficiency. They finally broke my shields, it seems like, but I could activate my 3 again, and we can just kill them off like this. I'll probably stick around long enough so that we can get an Acolyte to spawn. Hopefully it's not a 6-minute spawn, but a 3 to 4 minute spawn, because really the only thing that I have not showed yet is the one-shot with her horses itself, because we're running such high strength on the build. And now I can cast the 3 again, and we go back to killing. So that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do on the build. Very simple. And if you don't want to look at your timers, it's very obvious to know when you have to cast your 2 and 3 again. When you no longer see the funny green glow on her, that means your 3 expired. And that's it. Just kill some enemies here and there, and then it'll pretty much be off cooldown and you can recast it again. If you see her glow green, then that means you're able to cast it. If you can't, well, that means you can't cast it. Oh, look, she turned green. And when the eyes disappear, well, that means you can just cast her armor strip again. So you don't really need to look at any of her timers to make the build work as well, since she has very clear indicators on what is active, what is not, just by looking at her. And because, well, you don't need your 3 to be able to kill stuff, rather it's just a good damage spike, then you can just cast your 3. And if you can't cast it, well, just wait a few seconds and try casting it again. She has a very, very obvious animation, as you can see there. If I had Prime Sure-Footed, I would not have been knocked down. Even those guys die pretty easily and quickly. And eating that proc with the heat dot and everything else still was unable to put me down. So, that's all there is to her. Let's see how long it's going to take for this Acolyte to show up. Yeah? 3 minutes in, nothing yet. We could be lucky, we could be unlucky. I'm getting not enough kills a minute, but that's probably more so, one, I'm focusing on trying to think of what to say, because, you know, unscripted. But also just... Glaxion is not necessarily the best weapons to get kills a minute on. It's very good, very comfy, but as I said earlier, how many kills a minute you get comes down to which weapon you pick. And because, as I said, this is not compatible with room nuking builds, if you're going to try and create some crazy synergy of blowing everything up instantly, you might as well just use a different Dagath build, because that is not what this Dagath is for. It's just a set and forget chill vibes. Maybe you want to go watch your favorite show while you're busy playing around. This can work for that. It's all you really need to do is just this. Okay, 4 minutes in, no Acolyte in sight. We got 2 minutes left on the clock until its final spawn. Let's see what it will be. Toxin Blast Corrosive on a Tenet Glaxion. On Lavos, yes. Not on Lavos, I don't think so. Just because of how the elements are already occupied, and progenitor elements do not allow you to get Corrosive for free or Blast for free. You still have to actually have combined mods to get it, which means they originate from the base elements and would thus be affected by Toxin. Which means Toxin would be combined in instead of being standalone. Saren can do it too, because Venom Dose gives Corrosive, not Electric plus Toxin, right? So I think if you want to run a Corrosive Blast, Toxin, Glaxion... Okay, let's get over here. Bye! There we go. As you see, I didn't build anything else up to use it to one-shot the Acolytes, but I have my 4, so I can just go and do that and they're dead. Hopefully this Dagath video was just interesting enough for you, and if you're curious on another way that you can play gunplay styles on her, maybe Ophanim Eyes can be useful. As a reminder, no, this is not the go-to best gunplay build, it's just a rare use case where Ophanim Eyes is actually useful as a Helminth, because let's be real, there are very few builds in the game that wants a cone-shaped defense strip that does not go through walls and strips over time. Melee playstyles with influence these days nukes through walls, so it doesn't work with this. And ability nukes also don't work through this because they hit in a sphere around you. So she's relegated to essentially frames with guns that can take advantage of this. But I thought that was a pretty interesting use case. Thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe always goes a long way to help out the channel. And stick around because we definitely still got more in the future. Have a good one. See you next time.